Hello, everyone. And, oh, why are you there?
I don't know.
Come back to me. Come back to me.
It's not coming back to you.
Oh, that's sad. I'm depressed now.
Oh, well, you shouldn't have to be.
Well, anyways, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Jordan Smith. Let me just fix this right quick.
Yeah, you're going to.
Do.
Folks, we love starting off with technical difficulties,
Yeah.
but that's why we're in this business.
There we go. Yay. I'm on the
Yay.
screen. Hi, everybody.
See that ugly mug?
Hi. Oh, my stream deck doesn't want to be fun today. That's sad.
That's unfortunate.
Oh. But anyways, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Jordan Smith. That is Carlos Zimmerman over there. And we're doing kind of a different episode. We haven't been on, obviously, in a couple weeks.
Mhm.
So first off, how was your trip?
Or lack thereof.
Basically.
Yeah. It was supposed to be a fun week. And I mean, granted, it was for the folks that got to go. I was supposed to go with the youth group at Northside to camp in Louisiana. And, well, the Friday prior, I decided to play 2 games of Church League softball. And in the first game, it went as normal. We lost our game. And then I played a second game that night, and I was running to first. I hit a little, number down the second base side.
Right.
And the guy was going to get it, I thought, so I went slower out of the box, but then he bobbled it. So I started to accelerate. And then as the moment I decided to accelerate, pop goes my left hamstring.
Ooh.
And I'm not feeling too peachy over the weekend, so I call our youth pastor. I'm like, hey, I've been told to take it easy. I don't know if it's going to be good if I go. So I spent half of last week in Houston with my family and then came back to Huntsville and just spent the whole week here. I took the week off. It was great, but I didn't get to go. It's sad, but there's always next year. But I'm glad to be back here on the pod with you, Jordan, and we've got a mess load to talk about today. We're going to be here a while.
Yeah, we'll be here for quite a bit. We got a little bit about Conference USA Media Day, kind of just recapping our trip up there to Arlington. And then I say the second half, it's the majority of the show, is going to be the MLB trade deadline preview. With that showing up in pretty much just under a week's time.
Yep.
Next Monday being the official deadline. We got a lot to talk about. There's already been a lot that's happened. So kind of breaking it all down, seeing what kind of everything looks like, how it's all going to work, seeing what things may end up being that 11th hour deal that may or may not strike. We'll kind of see how that goes. But first, let's talk about, I guess, technically more of a developing story at this point, not so much breaking news. Something that was kind of teased around right about April Fool's Day about, oh, yeah, Colorado's going to leave, go to the Big 12. Well, now it's actually happening.
Yep.
They are having a meeting at 10 o'clock today. So when you're watching this, probably about a couple hours or so from when you're watching this, at least from today, from when we're recording it. It's about 40-ish, just over 40 minutes from now. They're going to have a final meeting to, I think, approve them jumping ship to the Big 12 starting next year. The Big 12 has already made a unanimous vote last night to allow them back into the conference. Kind of interesting. I'm honestly, I was one of those guys who always wanted Colorado to be back in the Big 12. I never wanted them to leave. I was like Colorado. But yeah, happy that they're back.
It's intriguing to say the least because, I think, and one stark opinion I have on this is that, because football is king when it comes to athletics in college.
Right.
I don't think this move happens if Deion Sanders isn't the head coach for Colorado. Obviously, the Big 12 is going to have a much bigger, media footprint and TV footprint than the Pac-12 does because the Pac-12 television deal wraps up after this next season. And that's another big reason why Colorado is going to be leaving. Also because they don't have to pay any exit fee.
Right.
Moving to the new league, and that's according to Pete Thamel at ESPN.
Right.
They have not formally applied for Big 12 membership, and I think that's what that meeting is for today, to apply. But, when the conference that you want to move to unanimously accepts you to come in.
Before the application even happens.
Right. That means they wanted you back.
Right.
And obviously this is big for the Big 12.
Yeah.
Because you're about to lose Texas and OU. So you add Colorado. So you're going to be at 13. So that tells me that either someone is either going to leave the Big 12 and go somewhere else, or the Big 12 is going to add another.
And it's interesting because at Big 12 Media Day, the commissioner, I forget his name, it's blanking on me, but he said they're not done. They're looking to expand more, and they're looking to make more moves and shake things up once again in college football, in college athletics in general. And, I was just kind of waiting to see what was going to happen. I figured nothing was going to at least be announced for another year or so. I didn't expect it to literally be a month and a half after Big 12 Media Day or a month after whatever to then say, oh, yeah, we're adding an old member of ours back to the conference. Because you remember, they were in the Big 12 from 96 to 2010.
Yes,
they were there for a good while.
They left in that the last huge batch of realignment that we had prior to the 2020s realignment was that move for Colorado going to the Big 12, Nebraska going to the Big 10, Arkansas. Well, actually, no, Arkansas have been the SEC for a while. Who am I trying to think of that also left the Big? Oh, A&M to the SEC.
A&M to the SEC. Yeah, there was about 4 or 5 teams that all left right about the same time or within the same couple of years. Like you said, with that last big realignment with, like you said, Colorado going to the Pac-12 and so on, and they were trying to really get a foothold in that conference to really grow their status even more. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I like this move for Colorado. I agree part of it is the fact that it wouldn't happen if Deion wasn't there, but I really think that a majority of this is the fact that there is no plan for what's happening with the Pac-12 past this year.
Right.
They really have nothing, because that's why also Oregon is looking to leave potentially and maybe go to the Big Ten.
And there was a tweet last night put out by Matt Prem saying the University of Oregon Executive Audit and Governance Committee of the Board of Trustees, they were going to have a meeting today at noon Central Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. So when this episode comes out, it'll already probably be transpiring. They said it's a very last, or Matt said it's a very last minute kind of meeting because Oregon sees Colorado making the jump and they're like, something's going on here with our conference. We need to start making a move. So, yeah, like you said, potentially a move to the Big Ten for Oregon, which means, the Big Ten's going to have to grab another one to try and counteract that so you don't have an odd number of teams in the conference.
Yeah.
So.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they grab another Pac-12 team just to keep grabbing that for whatever reason, grabbing more teams from the West Coast.
Traveling nightmare. But, just you got to follow the money and where it goes. So, yeah, this is huge for, these other conferences, but I think we are starting to slowly see the demise of the Pac-12. And, I talked about this with a colleague of ours at Liberty, Nick Pierce, the other day at Media Day. It's only a matter of time before, you have these just super conferences. And I tweeted at him, and I was like, hey, we're starting to see the fruits of it now.
Yeah.
With this move for Colorado and potentially a move for Oregon. And if those two go, Pac-12 is down to 8 schools next year because UCLA and USC are already going to the Big Ten next year. So you're down to 8 schools, and you're like, the only way we probably stay afloat is try to poach the Mountain West. But is that going to be enough to try and keep them alive? That's the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure, honestly, because I was thinking, why not poach some teams from the WAC? But I don't think any of those are really Power 5 ready. The only one that might be close would, and at least regionally make sense, might be Grand Canyon.
But they don't play football.
That's the thing. They would have to add a football program.
And I look at the football programs in the WAC, and you have there's barely enough ones to field the conference. That's why they're formed with the ASUN for the United Athletic Conference. So I don't think they're going to pull from there. They would have to pull from the Mountain West like that of a Boise State, a San Diego State. But the thing is, San Diego State's made it clear that they're not leaving the Mountain West. And I believe it was their president said that they're not leaving.
Yeah, and if you're looking at it from all these other teams as well, and you're seeing that all these teams are leaving the Pac-12, what gives you an incentive to join?
Right.
Because they're leaving because there's no plan. So why then join a conference that doesn't have a plan in place and doesn't really have a solidified thing? Now, I've been seeing that they, for the last couple months at least, said, by the end of the month, they'll have something locked down with a TV contract. Obviously, that hasn't happened. Now, shot in the dark, I just thought of. I would not be surprised if they got a contract with CW.
Yeah,
because that's been something that's come up recently.
Yeah, the CW's picked up games for the ACC in football and men's basketball, so it wouldn't stun me if they went that way. So the CW's trying to get more of a footprint in the sports world. That's something I believe even its predecessor, the WB, even remotely tried to get into.
Because you look at it, and with all of these new contracts that were signed this past year, none of them touched the Pac-12, not even with a 10-foot pole.
Nope.
There's a reason for that. They knew that more teams were probably going to leave, and the value of the conference was going to severely go down, especially when you have your two remaining head honchos in Oregon and Colorado. One already on its way out, basically. The other one potentially on its way out.
I wouldn't consider Colorado a head honcho around there. They're kind of the chaff of the Pac-12.
Money-wise, they're bringing it in. And that's the point.
Their endowment is set at $2.12 billion.
Right.
So it's one of the highest in the league. So, yes, that is true.
And that's what's going to keep the Pac-12 alive at this point is who's bringing in the money.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a thing with Conference USA, and we'll get into that a little bit more. With all the teams leaving, who's going to kind of step up and be that head honcho? But yeah.
I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen because, you have Colorado and potentially Oregon moving, which means Oregon State's without a rival.
Right.
Utah is without a rival because of the neighboring states, and you just got to wonder, what are the remaining members of the Pac-12 going to do going forward? Is it going to be a splinter effect, or are they going to try and find somebody to replace those teams? It's going to be very tough. Like I said, I think we're starting to see the demise of the Pac-12, but it's only a matter of time before we figure this out. So, but yeah, stunning move for Colorado moving. Like you said, it was kind of a joke in April, and 3 months later, it's reality.
Yep.
So, we'll see.
It's kind of interesting. It's interesting to see how this all works out. But moving on to our next topic, Conference USA Media Day, held at Globe Life Field out in Arlington. I always get field and the old park confused before they named it Choctaw State.
Choctaw.
Whatever. Point is, Choctaw. It's not Globe Life anymore.
Yes.
But yeah, it was. I'm going to be honest. It was nice.
It was nice.
Nice.
I mean, big shout out to the guys at Conference USA, Jordan Stepp, Josh Jonas, our buddy from old Southland days. You know, they put on a really good show, and it was really cool to be there. At like a big venue instead of like a hotel,
convention center
in the Woodlands. So it was a great experience. I mean, the drive was not quite pleasant, but it was enjoyable. We had a great time there. Getting to talk with Coach Keeler. Keegan Shoemaker and Trevor Williams, getting to talk to the media as well as all the other teams as well that are going to be who the Bearcats are going to be up against. It was intriguing and insightful, to say the least. And then, getting to interact with colleagues as well. It's always a great time there at Media Day. But we had a good time. Obviously, still a lot of questions going into this season. And a big question that I originally thought was answered in the press conference, but come to think of it, we are still not totally sure, who's going to be the field general leading the Bearcats into Conference USA. Keegan Shoemaker came to Media Day, but, you got a good quarterback battle going on in training camp.
You do, and it's interesting because not only with Shoemaker being there, you assume, okay, he's the starter because you're not going to bring somebody who's not going to start to Media Day to then be shined on ESPN, to ask questions and answer questions on ESPN and do all of that stuff, right? And it's even more interesting when you lay into that because during the press conference, I believe it was either you or Colton Foster with the item that asked a specific question about the quarterback battle. And Keeler straight up said, it's Keegan's team. He straight up said it's Keegan's team. But you still have the quarterback battle. So which one is it?
Yeah, that's what confused me is because the other quarterback that we're in question here is Grant Gunnell, the transfer in from North Texas, and is historically the Texas high school football leader in touchdowns in a career and passing yards. So he's had a lot of success. He just hasn't been able to find a stable landing spot.
Right.
But now he's found Sam Houston and still has multiple years of eligibility left. Keegan is at the tail end of his collegiate career, which means he's got more experience, obviously. But I was kind of stunned by that. Like, we're still having a quarterback battle, but Keegan's at Media Day.
And the other thing with it too, and something that we've all kind of discovered over the last week, at least I have. I know y'all kind of had knowledge about it before. about the whole exemption rule.
Mhm.
You know, if you're a team that is technically transitioning, like Sam Houston is, and let's say you get to at least 5 wins on the season, that's kind of that benchmark, and there's not enough 6+ win teams to fill bowl spots, those teams that are transitioning get automatic priority and get their transition quote unquote waived for a bowl ban, and they get slapped into a bowl game immediately. So it's not like you're technically playing for something, but you're not expecting to play for something all the same.
Right.
It's a weird dynamic for this year.
Well, and the thing is, too, the thing for Sam Houston that they got going for them is that if they are able to get 5 wins, there was only one other program that they are competing up for a bowl spot for, and they're in the same conference. It's
Right.
Jacksonville State.
Right.
Because JMU has already gone through their transition. They are bowl eligible until Kingdom Come.
Right.
So, good for y'all. We still beat you 2 years ago.
Yeah, we did.
And so, yeah, like I said, Jacksonville State's the only other team you got to worry about. So, really, yeah, there is stuff to play for this year. Of course, you're not going to play for a conference championship because that doesn't go away, and the same thing applies to Jayville State. So, it's I guess it really is a rivalry now.
Yeah,
because you're fighting for a bowl spot.
Basically, and it's weird because first, it's also just weird to think about. Oh yeah, Sam Houston could be playing in a bowl game, 5-6 months from now.
If you told me that 4 years ago when I got here, I would have called you nuts.
Right, it's same. I never thought I'd see the day where the Bearcats got to the FBS. Never thought I'd see the day.
Boy, did that fast track in a hurry.
Whew, you can thank the WAC for fast tracking the initial transfers and everything.
Well, we can thank Texas and OU.
I mean, that too. That was the big
starting
splash,
the snowball.
I mean, I still feel like the WAC was the one that really started it. And then,
oh, yeah, no. If we're in the Southland at this point, no. There's no way we're making the jump. Us moving to the WAC and then bringing back football
I think
was
started. It wasn't the big snowball. Like you said, Texas OU was really the big thing that got every conference to freak out and panic. But I think you started to see the inklings of that with the WAC bringing in those 3-4 programs, and they did 3 years ago at this point is when you kind of started to see 2 years, 3 years, whatever the official announcement was. But point being, that was kind of the start of the, hey, we know things are changing. We're trying to get something going here. And then you start to see other conferences think. Now, I'm not saying the WAC takes credit for Texas and OU going to the SEC, but that's when things kind of started to kind of be looked at and be like, hey, maybe we should try something. That's when you started hearing super conferences, potentially creating their own NCAA, so on and so forth.
Yep.
So, but anyways, point being, it's good media day. Like you said, I got to see a lot of great people, catch up with some old friends like Jonas.
McCoskey, Chris McCoskey, and
ESPN Plus broadcaster.
Yes, and loads of other guys as well. I mean, Colton from the Item, he got to come with us.
Yeah.
My hopefully future sideline reporter, Luke Scott, he got to come with us as well. I'm still working out some stuff behind the scenes there to get him into that spot, but I'm excited to bring him onto the team here, and I know Brian Adams, he's very excited for this upcoming season as well, as a lot of the guys are too. I mean, briefly here before we head to break, the conference released their preseason watch list ahead of Media Day, and the Bearcats that made that list on the offensive side, one of the more longer tenured Bearcats and our hero from 2 years ago, Ife Adei, he made that list. Ethan Hagler, incredible offensive lineman and a great head of no hair, he made that list as well. On the defensive side, of course, Markel Perry, glad we brought him back, as well as Kavion Gaither, had a big breakout year last season. And on the special teams, Jaden Cardell, who is kind of a two-way, if you will, doing the kicking and the punting as well. And on the academic performer side, Trevor Williams made that list as well. Now, as much as it's great for him to make the academic side of things, I think he should have been on the defensive preseason watch list because this guy has a potential to break school records this upcoming season because, for one, he's been here for so long.
Right.
But he's also, to me, and this is with full bias, but also bias not aside, to me, he's the best linebacker in the conference. I'm gonna say it point blank.
I mean, I could see the argument.
Because just the tenacity that he brings to the field and how teams, offenses have to coach around what Trevor Williams is going to do on the field. So I think he belonged on the preseason watch list in terms of just his skill. Yeah. Like I said, it's great academic-wise. That's what's more important at the end of the day. But he belonged up there with Kavion and with Markel as well. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen this season. Obviously, in the coming weeks, we're going to talk more about Sam Houston. I know maybe not next week, but the week after, I think we'll get to a point where we can start making our season predictions for Sam Houston.
As we get closer to that BYU game.
That's right. Coming up September the 2nd.
And maybe figure out by those next couple weeks of who the starting quarterback is. We probably won't officially know until he steps on that field at BYU, because that's usually how Keeler rolls.
It's either going to be, are we going to see a number 5 trot out there on the field with Keegan? I don't know what Grant's number is, but
or are we going to see something different?
Are we going to see something different? I don't know. Does Grant have a number on the roster? 8.
Okay. 8. So it's going to look very similar.
Yeah.
Great.
And we're already high up.
Binoculars.
So I'm going to look down on the I'm going to look down on the field and be like, all right, is that a 5? Is that an 8 or whatever?
Binoculars. That's what we're going to have to get.
I'm going to need to get me some. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited, but BYU coming up against Sam Houston very, very soon. All right, folks, we're going to step aside and take a break here on the KSAM Sports Podcast. Coming up next is what is going to eat up a majority of the show today. We do not know how long this next segment's going to go, so strap in. You may want to get some lunch or dinner whenever you may be watching this, a cold drink, and strap in because it's time to talk about the MLB trade deadline. Coming up after this on the KSAM Sports Podcast. And welcome back here on the KSAM Sports Podcast. I'm Carlos Zimmerman, the voice of the Sam Houston Bearcats and Huntsville Hornets. Alongside of me is the man that makes all the magic happen behind the scenes, Mr. Jordan Smith.
Hi. How you
That's
doing?
right. Once again, glad to be back here with all of you guys. Just got finished talking about Media Day and, of course, the big conference realignment moves that happened overnight. Now it's time to talk about the meat of our podcast today, if you will. You got the appetizer. Now you get the main entree. If you can't tell, I'm really hungry right now. It's time to talk MLB trade deadline. Whew! Man, lots already happened.
Yeah.
A lot's going to happen.
Yeah.
And a lot of head-scratching moves have been made.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that coming up here. And my goodness, one big I'm just going to go right into it here. The one that dropped last night that made me scratch my head. The Los Angeles Angels, they acquire the services of Lucas Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez, and they send to the White Sox prospects, left-handed pitcher Kai Busch, and catcher Edgar Cuero. The Angels are buyers.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I don't know. I think it's only because they realized that with the demand that they were trying to get, and rightfully so, for Shohei Ohtani, they weren't going to be able to trade him. That's why they pulled him from the trade market. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more later. But with that, they kind of realized, hey, we've got half a season left with two of the greatest players in baseball history on the same roster because we're probably not going to be able to bring him back. I don't think he wants to come back. So we got to make the most of it and somehow, for the first time in, over 10 years, get to the playoffs. At least close to 10 years. It feels like an eternity.
I believe it was 2014
Something
the last
like
time
that.
they made it, and they lost to the Royals in the ALDS.
Yeah, but
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, but the point being, I mean, it doesn't hurt getting pitching help. You know, everybody in at least the people I've seen in Angels world is kind of 50-50 on the move. I know you had mentioned a friend of yours that follows Angels baseball. You had mentioned this hours before this, probably within a couple hours before this move was announced.
Yeah.
That they were looking to get both of them. They got both of them in one trade.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense as to why they are buyers. Because you look at it, they're technically third in the West. They're not unreasonably out of the playoff picture as far as the division standings go.
The West has tightened up.
Yeah, and maybe you're kind of seeing them you're seeing them on the doorstep of grabbing one of the wild card spots potentially. With the Astros losing last night, they're back to 2 games back in the West. Angels are 7 back, so really their best shot is getting a wild card. And you look at the teams, technically speaking, they're sitting about 2 spots out of a wild card right now, and that's only by a few games.
And I'm looking at this right now. The entire AL East is ahead of the entire AL Central. That East is so competitive right now. And then you got the Rangers and Astros who are above the Twins in the Central as well. So the Twins have the 8th best record in the league.
I mean, the Angels are even above
they're leading
them.
a division. Well, they are
technically less losses. They have 1 more win, so it's probably like a game and a half.
2
if
more
anything.
wins. They have 2 more wins, so it's about a game-ish and a half or so. But either way, the Angels are right there.
Yeah,
the Mariners are right behind them, half a game back. Yep. So I get it, because you have, like you said, 2 of the best, most generational talents, the best, Asian product to come out of that continent since Ichiro, and Mike Trout.
Right.
So, obviously you don't have Trout right now because he's out on the lam right now from the injury bug.
Right.
So when you get him, you're hoping you get him back at 100%. So they are rolling the dice big time here. Are the Angels?
I feel like they're not done yet. I feel like they're still going to make some other moves. I feel
they
like
have to.
Yeah, I feel like they're. If I'm them, I'm getting at least an outfielder, just to kind of help with depth, and then getting at least 1 more pitcher. I say that I sound like I'm talking like an Astros fan because I kind of am, but point being, they still are going to need more. I don't think this is the end. I think they're going to be one of those 9th, 10th, 11th hour deals potentially to bring somebody in. It's just going to depend on how much they want to spend, with the fact that they're probably not going to bring back Ohtani. So you don't want to throw everything at the kitchen sink and trade all your prospects for it to not work out in a half season, lose Ohtani, and you're back to square one.
Yeah, and now you look at the flip side of this for the White Sox. You're getting the Angels' 2nd and 3rd best prospects according to the MLB pipeline. So this isn't terrible for Chicago, and what has been a rather lackluster year for them. Granted, they're 41-62, but they're 12.5 games back of the division lead because the Central sucks. So
they're also, what would that be? 21 games under 500. So they're not in a buying position at all.
No,
they're trying to retool, restock, and rebuild their entire team,
which is stunning because they're what was it? 21? They were in the playoffs where the Astros beat them?
So.
Yeah, 2 years ago. They're 2 years removed from a playoff spot.
Welcome to baseball.
I know. It shifts very, very quickly. And then one last touch on the Angels before we probably move to another big, interesting trade that I think's really gotten swept under the radar now, which I find rather intriguing.
Right.
Angels getting the services of Giolito and Lopez. Giolito, of course, he had a rough year last year, and now he's back to form and what he was during the COVID year. And you look at Lopez, a former starter, but now has been more of that true long reliever in the bullpen for the White Sox and now for the Angels. But he's had his command struggles this year. According to this, 4.7 walks per 9 innings. It's not great.
No.
Especially for a guy out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
That's what made me scratch my head. I was like, I get Giolito, and I know you probably need to get another guy to go along with him, but I feel like, I don't know if Lopez was the guy unless he can get back to the form that he was when he was a younger rookie for the White Sox.
Yeah, I would say one more touch on the White Sox, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about Astros.
We're going to be all over the place, by the way, folks. I'm just throwing it out there now.
We'll talk more Astros-specific stuff later on, but White Sox basically telling all teams Dylan Cease is no longer on the market.
Mm-hmm.
That, I think, is interesting when you see the Giolito move, sending them away, but then keeping Dylan Cease.
Well, you know what that tells me? They may want to extend him.
I mean, I would assume it's just a matter of does he want to be a part of a rebuild in the prime of his career?
Right.
Where he could go to somewhere like Houston, where everybody and their dog knew Astros want Dylan Cease. They were asking way too much for him, though.
Probably.
And that's why they pulled him, because they were asking way too much and nobody was getting to where they wanted to go. But also a name to watch for that I've seen pop up, not too much, but I've seen inklings here and there of maybe potentially getting shipped. 50-50, but potentially. Tim Anderson. Because if you're retooling and you're restocking, trade him and get a little bit of value. I mean, right now, he's basically hit above 300 each of the last 4 years since he won the batting title in 2019. And he's got a $14 million club option on his contract for next season. So you get him for half a year, and then you can decide if you want to spend $14 million or let him go to free agency without pretty much any harm being done. I say that he's hit above 300, but right now he's hitting 223. It's a matter of if they're going to get enough value, if they trade him or not, to see kind of what I guess that would potentially look like. But again, we feel like the White Sox are in a rebuild, but they're also not acting like they're in a rebuild.
I don't feel like they're in a rebuild. They need to realize they are in a rebuild.
Because otherwise they would have traded Dylan Cease.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not sure
Something
what
with
they're
that front
thinking.
office.
Yeah.
Something with that front office there in Southside.
tell ya.
So we'll see. Another trade that went down yesterday. Dodgers acquire the services of shortstop Ahmed Rosario from the Cleveland Guardians in exchange for right-hander Noah Syndergaard and cash considerations. So Rosario was in his final year of club control before he hit free agency, so you figured he was going to be on the move at some point.
Right.
So this is huge for LA.
Yeah.
Because now you drop a young guy in Miguel Rojas to the bench.
Yeah.
And you also recently got Kike back.
Yeah, you did.
So they've got a lot of options they can go with going forward for a team that was kind of in the middle of that division at the start of the year, but now they're being the Dodgers that we've known and hated for the last few years.
So, and that's the thing too, is that they're basically they're just kind of retooling, because you look at it, the division isn't won by any means. You got a 3-game lead on the Giants, a 4-game lead on the Diamondbacks, and after that, a 10-game lead over the Padres. So you got to worry about the guys that are probably going to be at the top of the wild card, and the Giants and Diamondbacks at least competing with the Reds or whoever comes out of the Central. But kind of looking at that, you still gotta keep your distance at least, and maybe grow a little distance between the Giants and the Diamondbacks if you're the Dodgers. So bringing Kike back, helping out with the outfield a little bit, like I said, trading Syndergaard and getting a little bit other help as well. It's nice to see. It's just a matter of how it's going to translate.
Yeah.
It hasn't been the best year for the Dodgers. They've been on a tear in the last couple months, obviously, to get back to the top of the division. Right now, they're 5-5 in their last 10. But, this isn't the team that a couple of years ago were flirting at one point with being on pace for like 120 wins in the season.
Right.
Because they got the 60 wins by the end of May. Or not May, but the end of June, basically. We're already at 65, 70 wins in a year. So, this is a different team, obviously. It's not as good, but this is still a team that you have to watch out for. You have to be aware of, because it is the Dodgers. They do still have a lot of good talent. So, it'll be interesting to see how that translates. I feel like they're probably going to go get an arm to replace Syndergaard's position. It's not going to be a high-profile name, but somebody that'll be efficient enough and potentially just slide into that spot, maybe be on the lower end of the rotation, the 4-5 spot, kind of elevate everybody else up, unless they're thinking of taking somebody out of the bullpen or bringing up a prospect to fill that spot. But either way, I'm thinking that probably we see the Dodgers go get an arm that is money-friendly, and that they can just use for half a season and then figure out something else long-term during the winter meetings this year.
Oh, for sure. Now, on the flip side of that,
Yeah.
Syndergaard's going to Cleveland, and, Noah has seen poor Thor. He's seen much better years, especially in his years in New York with the Mets. This year, prior to his injury in June, he had a 7.16 ERA in 12 starts for the Dodgers. Not great,
No.
by any stretch. He's been out since June 7th because he had a blister on his right index finger, and obviously you can't throw with that. So, and it also says here on this on MLB.com, the Dodgers had previously planned for Syndergaard to make his third minor league rehab start today, which would have been his final test before returning to the majors. So we'll see what Cleveland decides to do with him there. And Cleveland's in an interesting spot
They are.
because they play in such a lackluster division. They're 2 games back of the division lead. So they're hunting. I mean, it's not a wild card spot. They're not fighting for a wild card spot. The only way they get in the postseason is if you win that division.
Yeah.
So getting Noah Syndergaard brings a veteran presence to the locker room.
And I think that's something that they needed.
Mhm.
You know, you take a look at all the teams that have that go to the World Series, right? And this is kind of true for all sports.
Mhm.
There's that mix between veteran guys to kind of lead the charge, and in certain spots maybe not, not completely take over, not be the star, but at least just kind of be there, use their talents, and kind of help train the younger guys. This is a move that I feel like is kind of that. It's just adding some veteran help and trying to bolster, quote unquote, what they already have. Like you said, not having a great year, an above 7 ERA. So maybe the change of scenery will help him kind of refocus a little bit. But otherwise, I think this is just kind of a move for the Guardians, just getting additional arms and trying to catch up to the Twins, who both of them, you look at it, they're both 6-4 in their last 10. They're not doing too bad. They
gotta keep their eye in the rear view because
the Tigers somehow,
Detroit,
who is 9 games under 500, but 6.5 back of the division lead because baseball.
What a wild division! What a wild division!
But yeah, so I don't know. Like it's not a terrible move by the Guardians. It's just not.
It's not.
I don't know.
If this was like,
it's not like a Justin Verlander at 11:59.
Yeah, if this was like 2019
Yeah.
and I'm trading Noah Syndergaard, I'm going absolutely nuts and I'm crapping my pants.
Right.
But now it's kind of like,
Yeah, it's just more of a depth move.
Yeah.
Is what it really is. But yeah, I don't know that Cleveland will be too much more aggressive in this
so.
trade deadline. I think that's probably going to be the biggest name that you see join the Guardians. But yeah,
it stinks because you lose like a generational talent like Ahmed Rosario at your shortstop position. Maybe not generational, but like a great talent that you've had in the team for a while. And I believe he came up through their farm system. So sucks to see him go, but obviously, like I said, the Dodgers got a really good grab right there.
Now, I say that one name that potentially you could see is a name they would ship out, and that would be Shane Bieber. Potentially because you don't know if he's going to sign a long-term deal. He's under contract till after the 24 season.
How old is he? I wonder.
28.
Is he 28?
He's right in the prime of his career. So, it's not... It would be interesting to see, but if they're trying to make a playoff push, I wouldn't think that they would trade him. But, if you get a good enough offer, you take it. We've seen teams in the middle of a playoff race trade guys you wouldn't think they trade, but the return they get back is too good to pass up on. And I think that'll be something to watch. I don't think that if I'm the Guardians, you're doing it unless you get a supreme offer. But, I don't know. It's kind of one of those maybe, maybe not. It won't hurt them if they trade them. It won't hurt them if they don't. It's just kind of a matter of if they do it or not. And if they do, what do they get back in return? It'll be at least one arm. If not, then what is his role going to look? Is he going to stay in the same spot? Is he going to get more of a role? Kind of how is that dynamic going to shift now that you add Noah Syndergaard? And kind of seeing what the rotation and the bullpen kind of look like heading into the last couple months of the season.
Right.
Taking a look at some other names, just kind of going through the general list of players and people to potentially watch. I know some people have thrown out, as has been rumored to come to Houston potentially in the trade, Marcus Stroman and Cody Bellinger, both from the Cubs. Those have been 2 players linked to join the Astros potentially, help the arms with Stroman, which has been kind of a very up and down year.
And bolster the outfield.
And exactly, bolster the outfield, throw Belly out in left field, and get that solidified. And I am still under the premise and the assumption that the Astros will go get a starting left fielder at this trade deadline
and shut Brantley down.
And shut Brantley down for the year, because that's what they did. I want to say a year or two ago. I forget who it was, but they did that. They got somebody in the trade deadline, and immediately after that, the next day, they shut down whoever it was for the rest of the year. I want to say it may have been Lance.
McCullers.
I think they did that. It was either him or it was Verlander that they officially shut down for the year after going and trading for an arm. I believe is who it was. It was a couple years ago, I believe. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen again here. It's going to be a matter of if they get an outfielder. Now, again, everybody's been kind of looking at, is Chas McCormick going to get traded? Initially, that was kind of the thought of he may get traded. Then he started being absolutely stellar.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be absolutely very hard to trade. Now, I say that. His value in the trade market has shot way up.
Yes.
But if you're Houston, you take that constant and that guarantee at center field in Chas McCormick. Do you trade a guy like Jake Myers, who's been heavily rumored to, be somebody you trade off? You get a left fielder, and if you need to grab another guy in the winter meetings, you figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's him. There's Corey Julks that's been kind of rumored as a maybe a tradable asset. Because at this point, if you're the Astros, you might have to trade one of those guys to go get help. And that's the thing.
For me, and just my personal opinion on this, Julks has been a pleasant surprise this year with the way he's been performing. So I feel like he's an asset we can hold on to. I know his trade value is very high, but we got to dump Jake Myers.
Mm-hmm.
We got to find someone who's going to take him onto their team, whether that be the Cubs or somebody else, because it's become clear that Chas McCormick's our starting center fielder, and that's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's our guy. Tucker's solidified in right. We have that hole in left field right now. So hopefully
we say Tucker solidified in right. It's a matter of if they get a long-term deal done.
Right.
So,
but for the time being, he's our guy.
Right.
So I think Jake Myers is the one on the move. It wouldn't shock me if they try to package both of them, Myers and Julks, in a trade.
Maybe to go get Stroman and Belly in a trade, because you're going to have to trade at least another prospect in that as well.
And you got other guys, that have been thrown around in the farm system. I mean, Spencer Arrighetti is one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Forrest Whitley is still here.
They need to trade him. Granted, he's been on and off the field. He's been hurt so many times, but at this point, he's not going to make it to the majors unless he gets somewhere else and maybe figures it out, but it's not working in Houston.
No,
that experiment is done.
And it's sad because he was such a highly touted prospect coming out whenever we drafted him. But what year did we draft him? 2016, 17?
I think, yeah.
And he's still not at the major league level.
That's when we drafted McCormick was 17.
Right, and I know he's not at the major league level because he's been hurt so much. Well, there's the problem right there. He's hurt all the time. That's why he can't call him up. It was about a few months ago where I don't know who it was in our friend group that was like, why would we trade him, because he's going to get here at some point. And I'm like, no.
He would have done it by now.
Right. So he needs to be probably chipped off in a trade. There's a lot of things the Astros could do to try and land, a guy like Stroman and Bellinger, but they're not the only guys that are linked to the Astros.
There's a couple of names that have full no-trade clauses that have been rumored to potentially be traded. Of course, they would have to be approved to potentially be traded. One, and we talked about this last night with our friend group, and I don't think he's getting traded at all. There's no reason to trade him. Max Scherzer.
No.
From the Mets. There's no reason to trade him. He's got a full no-trade clause. This has been a year of a ton of injuries for the Mets, so keep him, figure it out later. Another guy, and this is an interesting one because you look at this team in the NL Central, and it hasn't been a great year by any means for this team. They have not lived up to the billing of what they have, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try to at least send this guy for the back half of his career, try to find a way to go win a title. Nolan Arenado, third baseman for the Cardinals. He's been a name that's been kind of rumored. 32 years old. He's under contract 4 years, $109 million after this season. So it's a matter of if somebody's going to take that contract and if Arenado would accept a trade. But again, no trade clause. I don't think he's going to get traded, at least right now.
No.
I think that would be more of a winter meeting kind of move if that was to even happen because, like I said, the full no trade clause that he has in his deal. But I think that would be someone to watch because at this point, if you're the Cardinals, you're in a Wainwright's done after this year. Yachty is gone. Pujols, he came back, did his swan song. He's gone. There's not much identity left besides Arenado and your shortstop. I don't know why I'm blanking on this. I would keep wanting to say Tulo, but it's not.
No. Well, you got Tommy Edman at second, and
yeah, but again, I feel like you're in a rebuild at this point. If you're the Cardinals,
you have to be, and you look at where they're at in the standings right now. They are 4th in the Central, 11 games back,
barely
of
ahead of the Pirates,
half a game up on the Pirates. So
it's
intriguing, and it's interesting you bring up the Cardinals because there's another guy on that team that is rumored to probably be a trade asset, Jack Flaherty.
Yeah,
who was supposed to be their ace,
right?
Be the new Wainwright for the Cardinals, and he's had to fight the injury bug here and there. So that's another thing. I'm for certain the Cardinals are sellers here at the deadline to try and rebuild what was once a really, really dominant franchise.
And one more name that I want to throw out there, and a guy that I would love more than anything in the world to see this guy in an Astros uniform. One that may be a little bit of a surprise, but also not really if you kind of think about it. He's in the prime of his career, 28-year-old closer, under club control for 3 more seasons. David Bednar from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Second consecutive All-Star year, a 1.27 ERA and 17 saves, over 34 appearances up to this point. That is a guy I would love to see be as a setup man for Ryan Presley in that back end of the bullpen because you get to that postseason, you're going to rely on those setup and closers heavily late in ball games. And I would think that adding David Bednar as a setup or a low-middle reliever would be a great addition for that bullpen.
Because you look at our bullpen right now, it's been a little shoddy as of late.
Right.
I mean, Hector Neris has been reliable, but he's shown cracks in the foundation. Rafael Montero's been rather disappointing this year in some of the games that he's come into. So, yeah, you probably need another guy to try and be, the thunder to Ryan Presley's lightning. So, yeah, I could see that. I'm not totally certain. One trade, God bless him. I love Colin. Our good friend.
We're not getting him.
Our good friend Colin Neal. He's great. He'll be here. He'll probably be a guest host here on the podcast coming up this fall, along with Luke Scott and our friend at the Adam Colton Foster. But he's thrown out the ideas of, whenever Dylan Cease was still on the market, he was like, no, we don't need Dylan Cease. Why don't we get Aaron Savali from Cleveland? And I'm like,
No.
I don't even need to give a reason. No. But then he threw out this other one last night, and I read this, and he said, quote, how are we feeling about this one? Cardinals need good defensive outfielders with a year or so of team control. Jake Myers fits this category, and the Cardinals should be selling. So the trade that he put together was that the Cardinals get Jake Myers, and that's it. But we get Steven Matz and Jordan Montgomery.
So,
I agree with our friend Scott here. He said in our chat, I mean, sure, that doesn't solve our issues.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. That doesn't really help fix the issues we have at large at all. If you're going to do a trade like that, you need to do that in like one trade. And that's why I keep going back to the Cubs, getting Stroman and Belly in that one trade, giving up a few assets, but you solve your left field situation. You get a proven arm in your arsenal to be able to use for, the rest of this year and in the postseason. And I don't know that getting arms from the Cardinals right now is the best move. I think you got to go somewhere else. Like I said, Cubs, you can go get other arms. Like I said, I would love to see David Bednar from the Pirates. A guy that might be a sneak of a grab. Don't know how much that's going to be, but Josh Hader with the Padres. He's been a left-hander that's been kind of rumored to maybe be traded. It would be a second straight year being traded at the deadline, however. But, that's a guy who has been kind of rumored to maybe be on the move again. And that wouldn't be a bad arm either if you're the Astros. Because, let's face it, you need left-handed pitching.
Lest we forget, Hader was once in the Astros organization as a young prospect until we made probably one of the worst trades in recent history, trading him amongst other prospects to Milwaukee in exchanges for the services of Carlos Hothead Gomez and a man that will not be named.
But yeah,
for obvious reasons.
Yeah. So I mean,
it would atone for that mistake.
Right.
So we'll.
Yeah, and the thing with the trade that Colin proposed, I don't see it benefiting the Astros in any way. Yeah, you get arms, and that's what you need right now, but I just don't feel like those are the right arms per se. Either. And yeah, you give up a very minimum haul in Jake Myers, which means you still have Jolk, you still have other guys, Aaron Getty to potentially trade, but at the end of the day, it's just not. And it's not the right move.
And that's why I don't think the Cardinals would make that trade, because that's a very lopsided move, in my opinion. Because
remember, they're also rebuilding, so it's not a matter of lopside, but
it's a matter of
they need more prospects that they're going to do.
They need more than just one guy who's not even a prospect. He's on our starting. He's on our regular roster. Right. So I don't know. I think either way, no matter way you skin it here, I think the Astros, no matter what trade they're going to make, they're making the postseason. There's no doubt in my mind, because that's, at the end of the day, that's the goal. We have 59 games left until October baseball, and you're 2 games back of the division lead. It was a disappointing loss last night, kind of ugly with how some of the things transpired with the Rangers, but you are still in contention for the division. You're still in contention for the number 1 overall seed in the league. You just need that one piece. To me, it is just one piece the Astros need, because you just got Altuve and Alvarez back. If you can get that one piece in a package deal, if you will, that's why I think Marcus Stroman and Cody Bellinger is our best option at this point, is to bring them over here.
Yeah, and I think, because I've said this before on this podcast, I've said it before, when the cameras are on. As much as I hate to say it, I really do feel like this is probably the last year of the golden era for the Houston Astros. Unless they make some huge splashes in the offseason.
We say that every year.
Oh, though. I don't. I haven't said that until literally now. Y'all say it. Sure, you take that. I'm now taking credit saying I only say it now, right? Because before you're like, oh yeah, team's unstoppable. Now there's so many questions of, is Lance ever going to get back to form? How is Garcia going to be after he comes back from injury? You've got the question of, you still really haven't filled that Justin Verlander hole. Granted, you're not going to fill it all the way, but you haven't really gotten somebody that's going to be that solid spot to fill Justin Verlander, whether that be a prospect or that be a free agent signing. Hunter Brown's trying to come into his own. He's going to take some time. You may see him have a hot start next year, but after that, what's going to happen, right? And then you have the hole in left field. You don't know if you're going to sign Kyle Tucker long-term. Bregman says he wants to come back and has said that for years now.
Can't keep both.
That's the thing. You're probably not going to be able to keep both for what they're both going to want. Now, I will say, up until recently, the production from Alex Bregman warranted a lower, pay tag. Now, granted,
he had almost all our runs last time.
That's the thing. So he's done a lot better. And he shot his value way up for a potential big contract in the offseason. I think it's going to depend on how the average value goes. Because you remember, Jose Altuve has the same agent as Alex Bregman, Scott Boras. Mm-hmm. Scott Boras is all about getting the most amount of money possible for his clients. So it's going to be a matter of what makes sense for the Astros in the long term, what they're going to be able to financially do. Because at the end of the day, this may be this last year where you might have Kyle Tucker, if they can't get a contract signed, sitting in your outfield. So really the only solid outfield you have left is Chas McCormick.
Yep.
And so from there you go, okay, you need a guy in left, you need a guy in right. You're probably going to trade Jake Myers, I would assume. So you've got Corey Julks left to probably fill one of the corner spots in the outfield. Mm-hmm. And then you still need somebody. You still need 2 at that point, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Julks is a long way away from being a solidified starter, in my opinion.
Oh, well, for sure. He's a rookie.
Right, yeah, that's the thing. Like, he hasn't, in the limited time he hasn't proven anything to get more playing time.
Well, and it's been a pleasant surprise, like I said, with him, and same with Yainer Diaz behind the plate. I feel a lot more comfortable now dumping Maldonado at some point.
I'm still thinking he's going to retire at the end of this offseason.
That's what I'm thinking, too. So we have our replacement for him, which that was a good thing. We shored up the catcher spot.
Yeah.
To me, between Alex Bregman and Kyle Tucker, the guy that I think is going to bring more long-term success to this team, I haven't put much thought into this. I'm just going to say, just off intuition alone, I think will be Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
Because
he's also younger.
He's younger. Well, I think they're both very talented players.
They are.
But he is younger, and I feel like we're going to have an easier time trying to find an infielder to shore up over there in the hot corner rather than an outfielder.
With the prospects that we have, yes, it'll be a lot easier to find.
So I think what they need to probably extend Tucker.
They absolutely need to extend Tucker.
And if Bregman goes...
Now, granted,
he goes.
Bregman doesn't leave for another at least couple years.
Right, so you have him for a little while.
You have him for now, but my whole thing with this being the last year of the Golden Era, if you don't make some moves to get long-term success
and extend the era,
it's going to be up to whatever prospects come up to fill those voids and maybe try to be a star. Otherwise, you're kind of getting ready to see other teams like the Rangers take hold of the West for a bit.
Unless, the Rangers are just a one-trick pony this year. You don't know what's going to happen there. We talked about it with our friends that are Rangers fans. Luke, Rangers fan. He's a football guy, so I take everything he says with a grain of salt. There's other guys in our group that came up with us through NSMA that are Rangers fans. A lot of the big moves they made in the offseason, some of them aren't even playing right now. Isn't Corey Seager still out?
Yes.
And DeGrom's on the shelf. And so, yes, you have Adolis Garcia. Congratulations. And amongst other guys as well. But I'm trying to give them some credit because they've been able to do a lot with some of the minimum. But imagine what they would be doing if they had those guys healthy.
So this is something that I feel like the Rangers should be trying to get someone at this.
Oh, they're obviously buyers here.
The thing is, they haven't really.
There hasn't been a lot of names linked to them.
There really hasn't. And the thing is, too, how much are they really able to technically spend? Because you look at it.
Because they spent all that gobs of money in the offseason.
They're on the buck for $233 million between all their pros and their minor league roster and everything else, all the additional benefits, all of that. They're on the book for $233 million, but the active total payroll at the moment is $201. Mm-hmm. So they got a little bit because the salary cap, quote unquote, I want to say is about $240 before you hit that luxury tax threshold for the for MLB. So they technically have a little bit to potentially spend. Yeah, $233 million is the actual threshold. So they're, as far as total, they're right at it, but that's including all your minor league rosters. So
the thing is,
I don't know.
My thing, I'm looking at their roster right now, and their rotation is Dane Dunning, Nathan Eovaldi, John Gray, Andrew Heaney, and Martin Perez. Solid, but I think, but you look at their bullpen. Yeah. There's no long reliever in there.
No.
Yeah, Cody Bradford, Brock Burke, who I think is their long reliever. Jose Altuve's son, Aroldis Chapman, Spencer Howard, Jose Leclerc, Yeri Rodriguez, and Owen White, and Will Smith is your closer. You need a long reliever in that bullpen if you want to see any sort of postseason success.
And here's why you need that. You have an active payroll of $122 million. You have $70 million on the injured list right now. You need an arm just to at least get you through this half season if you're the Rangers and trying to stay atop the West with the Astros coming up behind. And if the Angels figure out some kind of blockbuster deal, you might have to watch them on the tail end as well. Because the Mariners, like we've said, probably aren't going to make that push for the title.
somehow.
They may try to sneak in a third wild card spot, but I don't think they're going to get there this year. So I think if you're the Rangers, you need to at least go get someone. Probably more an arm than a fielder, if anything, but you need to get somebody. If you're fully serious about making the postseason this year, if you're the Rangers, you need to get an arm.
They're shored up offensively, in my opinion. They were able to figure it out after Seager went on the shelf. They've got Brad Miller, they've got Josh Jung and Marcus Semien in the infield. There, I think they're okay.
And Adolis Garcia really doing
has
what he's been doing.
Blown up. Right field's a little odd because it's Travis Jankowski out there, but I think they're.
You got Robbie Grossman.
Astros legend. I think they're okay offensively.
Yeah,
I think that is what has driven them so.
I
many
say
wins.
that you have Adolis Garcia as a right fielder. So.
Right. Well, Jankowski was in right the other night.
Yeah,
I don't know where Garcia was at, but either way, their offense is what's got them where they're at right now.
It has,
because to me, their pitching could be light years better.
It could, and you also have to remember that part of that is the injuries and stuff as well.
It is, and I'm trying to let it slide, but when you pay a huge sum of money to one of the best pitchers in recent history in Jacob deGrom, and he's not playing at all right now because he's so injury prone. Yeah. To me, I feel like you wasted not only opportunity, but you wasted money.
Yeah, that's basically why I feel like they need to go get at least an arm. If they're serious about trying to win the West and potentially get themselves a top 2 spot in all the American League.
They're number 2 right now.
You got to go get an arm. This is basically their time to go get a Justin Verlander at 11:59. That's what this is. This is basically an equivalent to the 2017 Astros if you're at the trade deadline. This is them needing that splash at the last minute, getting the arm, solidifying for this half season, and figuring it out until you get DeGrom back next year to get something solidified and then there to say, we're gunning for a title. We're not just going for the West. We're trying to we're trying to get to the Fall Classic.
Yes.
So I think if you're the Rangers, you need to go get yourself an arm. I think that is the only thing that really concerns them right now is getting an arm, throwing that guy in the rotation, and trying to go the rest of the year and stay ahead of the Astros. Now, again, that'll depend on what the Astros do as well. Now, kind of looking at some other deals here as we kind of quickly run through them. Some other minor ones. You got the Marlins getting Jorge Lopez from the Twins for right-hander Dylan Floro.
Straight up.
You got the Mariners getting Trent Thornton from the Blue Jays for Mason McCoy. Straight up. You got some other trades as well. Again, on the lower end, Braves acquire right-handed pitcher Pierce Johnson for the Rockies for Victor Vodnik and Tanner Gordon. You've got Braves getting Taylor Hearn from the Rangers.
Shoring up that bullpen.
You've got the Blue Jays getting Genesis Cabrera from the Cardinals for Samuel Hernandez. You got the Orioles getting some pitching in Shintaro Fujinami from the Athletics. That helps at least depth-wise a bit.
That was a very good grab for them.
And that was kind of one of the first bigger trades of this kind of period of, all right, let's get things moving here. And in return, the Athletics got Easton Lucas. The White Sox getting Mike Mayers from the Royals for cash considerations. Dodgers getting Tyson Miller for the Brewers for cash. The Giants getting Jack Larson from the Mariners. Guardians getting Chris Valamont from the Orioles for cash. So more of the early deals kind of just getting depth stuff. And then, of course, June 30th, the Rangers getting Aroldis Chapman from the Royals for Cole Reagans and Ronnie Cabrera. So that trade has helped out a lot. He just can't pitch at Minute Maid Park.
Yes.
But other than that, I mean...
Ever again.
Ever again. Which would be funny if the Rangers and Astros met in the playoffs.
Which means he would have to.
He would absolutely have to.
More than once.
Yeah.
And I find it funny that he actually wasn't bad.
No.
Whenever the Rangers got him, and he had been very solid.
He was even solid after it.
Yeah. His first bad outing is against the Astros. And Chas McCormick becoming his stepdad.
What I think is funny about that is the fact that it wasn't the exact same scenario, but
it was the same look, almost the same spot.
Same look. He had the same exact reaction. You look the side by side of his reaction. It is the same exact. Oh, you gotta be kidding me! And it almost landed in the same exact spot Chas McCormick's homer did as Jose Altuve's did to clinch the pennant.
Mm-hmm.
All of that I thought was hilarious. But
Yes.
point being, outside of Minute Maid Park, he should be fine.
He's been great, and it's like you said, he just can't come back to Minute Maid.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of looking at some other things, one thing that we have not touched on yet too much, the Angels saying we're not trading Shohei.
Because they're buyers.
Because they're buyers, right? We talked a little bit about it, but it's kind of a thing where, like I said earlier, you're not what they were asking for. You were not going to be able to get a trade. There isn't enough that's worth it. You would literally have to give somebody your franchise to then say yes, it's worth it to get Ohtani. But otherwise, it's like you use him for this half season. You try to be buyers, like we mentioned earlier, and try to move on. But I don't see it.
They needed to see the writing on the wall that I just don't think, even if you get a healthy Trout back, that you're not going to be able to keep up with Texas and Houston at the top. No. I know they're only, 5 games back of us right now?
Yeah.
And you got the Mariners breathing down their neck because here's the thing, folks. Baseball, in more ways than one, is kind of like basketball. Yeah. It's a game of runs. And I don't mean like runs in the game itself like basketball would be. I'm saying in multiple games in a row. Like, whoever gets hot at the right time is going to be a team that's a formidable foe. Exhibit A, last year, Philadelphia in the postseason. Got hot at the right time. Schwarber hitting everything but the kitchen sink.
Right.
And they got to the World Series. Granted, they ran into a juggernaut, but they were the only team that got to Houston.
Right.
Houston's 2 losses in the postseason was to Philadelphia because they were hot. So you can't count out anybody at this point unless they're bottom feeders at the bottom of their division right now. But so that's why I'm thinking, why did the Angels not become sellers? Because they need to realize their window, I don't think, is really open.
One name that, as I'm looking here through some of these articles that I've run across, that I didn't really think about until this. The White Sox are talking with the Rays and the Dodgers.
Lance
Lynn. That one's an interesting trade piece. 6.18 ERA right now, 115 innings pitched, a WHIP of 144, 139 strikeouts to 43 walks. Not having a great year, but again, talk about the veteran presence of trading Syndergaard. That would be a guy you come in, veteran presence, and for a team in the Rays who's in the thick of it in a AL East title race, you got the Dodgers who are leading in the 3-team race in the West in the NL. That wouldn't be a bad arm to get. Like I said, not having a great year, maybe the change of scenery would help, but putting him in a actual playoff race would probably help a little bit as well, and having that veteran guy to help you out with your arms.
And the Rays and the Dodgers need pitching depth.
Yeah.
Rays don't have. They've lost Drew Rasmussen and Shane Baz to major elbow injuries. Los Angeles doesn't have Dustin May or Walker Buehler. So you need somebody.
Yeah.
And Lance Lynn is not a bad move. Also, veteran presence. 36 years old, and he has loads of postseason experience when he was with St. Louis.
Yeah.
So it'd be a great grab to get this year, and I'm with you on it. I think a change in scenery will do him some good because Chicago,
right?
If you, like you said, go to a competitive team, could rejuvenate him and get him back to where he was in his prime.
Here's a name. The Twins are getting some interest. They're receiving some calls, and I don't know if they're listening or not, but they're at least getting calls about Max Kepler, left-handed right fielder.
The German.
Now, I don't know how much left field he's played, but
no.
You need a left-handed bat in that lineup.
I know we need a left-handed.
You need a left-handed bat.
I know we need a left-handed bat, but he's not going to play left field for us.
No, I mean 234 average, 14 homers on the year, 0 stolen bases. It's not like a huge, because here's the thing, he's got a club option after this year for $10 million for next year, right? It's not an expensive thing. You still got plenty of room left in the budget to go get an arm or two. One in the bullpen, one in the rotation. Obviously you're not going to move Tucker from right field. You're not going to move Chaz from center.
That's why we don't get him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If he was a left fielder, I'd say you go get Kepler in a heartbeat
in a
and use him
heartbeat,
as a defensive guy.
without a doubt. But he doesn't play left field.
And that's the thing. I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things. You need a left-handed bat. You need left-handed pitching as well, because I think literally every single person in your rotation is a right-handed arm, if I'm not mistaken, except
in the
for
starting rotation,
starting bullpen, whatever, except for like one guy.
In our rotation,
Yeah,
Fromber.
yeah, that's like the only guy, and that's the thing. Everybody else is a right-hander. Our batting, all right-handers except Tucker. You need another lefty, because obviously with all that, very one-dimensional, quite literally. So. You gotta get a left-handed bat. If he was willing to play left field for half a season, I'd still go get Kepler, get the defensive help out there, get something solidified, and get a lefty in the lineup. But again, like I've been saying earlier, like you mentioned, Stroman and Belly from the Cubs is your best bet. You're gonna have to give up Myers. You might have to give up Jolks. You throw in Forrest Whitley in that deal. So they can have some more, arms, because you got Hayden Wesneski out there who was back in AAA. He's going to come back up to the major leagues at some point and figure it out. Give them Forrest Whitley so we can kind of be done with that experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Let somebody else handle that, and we can move forward from there, because, we've got prospects coming up in the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
The guys we just drafted, you got Gilbert, outfield help from last year's draft. So you got guys, but you're going to need somebody to be there until you got Drew Gilbert in that lineup.
And I think all we got to say here, folks, to kind of wrap this segment up is that, it's just a matter of waiting and seeing at this point. You got 4 days left of the deadline. Obviously, a lot more may even come out in between our time of recording this and uploading this to the YouTube channel. So a lot can change in the coming hours and week or days ahead. So needless to say, we've already laid out what the Astros need to do. It's up to Dana Brown at this point and the team and what they're going to do with Houston. And obviously for all the other GMs across the league, there's a lot of moves that can happen. And I'm excited to see what will, because as it is every year, once the deadline is passed, it's full steam ahead to October.
Just happened in the last half hour. Angels designate Jared Walsh for assignment. So
what a drop-off.
There's a right-hander that's technically open in the market, but again, that's not what you need at all. And that's not even close to what I think any team is going to go grab
again,
right now.
What a drop-off. 2 years ago, he was just raking for L.A., and now he's in the crapper. Well, that's baseball for you. All right. So, are you done talking? We're done talking baseball?
I don't know. I want to talk. I could talk baseball for the next 12 hours.
I know you can. And I'm not judging you for it, but I'm just like, okay, I can't complain, because when it's college basketball season, I could go on for hours.
Oh yeah.
About college hoops, so I'm going to be insufferable starting in November.
Yes, you will.
So we'll see what happens.
More than you already.
But actually, if you want to transition away from baseball for a second here, very exciting, just a tiny college basketball note.
Yeah.
Quay Grant has signed a professional deal.
Yes, he has.
With a team in Finland.
Ooh.
So congratulations to Quay and his family as he's getting to make this big jump in his career. Tristan Ipe also just signed a professional deal. So both those guys, they were great to talk with during the basketball season, and now they get to extend their careers playing across the world. So big congratulations to those guys, and it'll be intriguing to see what they can do in the next steps of their career. So okay, I think we'll step aside and take our last break. Coming up next is our final note, and it's going to be a bit close to home for me, because the kind of homeland has won a game at the Women's World Cup. Philippines knocked off New Zealand, and we'll talk about that and our final note coming up after this.
Hello.
There
Hi.
we go.
I pressed it on the stream deck. I promise you I did. You heard the click.
I heard the click, but then I saw gray on the OBS, so I was like, it's muted, Jordan.
Yeah. Welcome back to this Reek and Dink podcast. I'm Jordan, that's Carlos. Final note of the day. Like you said, a little bit closer to your homeland. Talk about the FIFA Women's World Cup. The Philippines, in their first ever World Cup match, grabbed a victory against New Zealand.
Second World Cup match.
The way it has it here, it was their first.
It's their first Women's World Cup.
Right. Well, the last 5 it has it as that.
Oh.
Either way, Google. But yeah, getting the win against New Zealand to now in Group A, all they need is a tie or a win and a New Zealand loss.
They're moving on.
And they're moving on because right now they're -1 goal differential against, or just in general. They're a -1 goal differential. New Zealand is at 0.
Because they haven't scored.
Right. So they need a win or a +2 on goal differential over New Zealand and a tie as well. A win would be very crucial, and then the +2 goal differential. And New Zealand would basically need a tie or lose and stay at a 0 for goal differential in order for the Philippines to leapfrog and move on. Technically speaking, there is still a chance for the Philippines to win Group A. There is still a chance because of the fact that Switzerland drew. They're only at 4 points. The Philippines and New Zealand are 1 point shy.
Wow.
Of the lead in Switzerland. You take a look at the upcoming matches left. The Philippines goes against Norway, Switzerland against New Zealand. So, Philippines going against the 4th team in Group A. They are 2 points behind. They lost 1 and they've drawn 1 in Norway. That's why they only have the 1 point in 2 matches. So, you get a win there, hypothetically, right? You get a win there against Norway. It then creates an interesting scenario because even with that, you could still win the group because the 1 and 2 go against each other in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, if you want to win the group, New Zealand has to win, and you have to have at least 1 goal differential more. So let's say a 1-0 win for New Zealand. Philippines still has to win by at least 2 goals. So either a 2-0 victory or a 3-1 victory at minimum is what they have to do against Norway to give themselves an actual shot at winning the group. Now, just to get in, they just need to have a better goal differential against New Zealand and a win or a tie. In other words, Switzerland wins, win or tie for Philippines, you're in the knockout stages.
Yep. And the interesting thing about this group, all the games have been very low scoring. I mean, soccer in general is a low scoring sport. I understand that. But particularly this group. New Zealand beats Norway back on last Thursday, 1-0. Switzerland beats Philippines 2-0, and Philippines held their own in that game last Friday. You look at further down here.
Switzerland and Norway
drew.
Yeah, at 0-0.
Yeah.
That's the shocking thing of that.
And then Philippines, of course, beating New Zealand 1-0 Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So there's not a whole lot of goals.
Philippines beating New Zealand.
That's what I meant, 1-0.
It's the whole point of this segment.
I've been on the morning shift on the lake all week long, so cut me some slack. But, so it's obviously very exciting for the country because they didn't expect this at all. Right. I mean, after I saw them lose to Switzerland, I was like, okay, well, that was kind of expected. But then stunning one of the host countries at that in New Zealand, which is huge for the country. I called my cousins over there in the Philippines. They're obviously very excited. Actually, I called them. It was like 2 a.m. You were already asleep at that point. By the way, he's my roommate now. But it's just that's a side note. But either way, you were asleep, and I called them after the win, and they were just elated. And they were like, Carlos, isn't it like 2 a.m. over there? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm watching. So I'm very excited to see what they can do. Coming up, there's only one game tonight on the Women's World Cup side. That's Argentina versus South Africa. Philippines will have to wait till Sunday at 2 a.m. to play Norway. New Zealand and Switzerland will play at the same time as well. One final touch on this Women's World Cup, too. United States and the Netherlands drawing yesterday.
And something else, too, is the fact that going into half, they were down 1-0 for the first time since like 2013. 2011. There you go. So obviously it had been a while. They had to play literal catch up, but luckily they got the draw.
And
they at least escaped with the draw. They'll figure it out later, but now they're tied. They're still tied at the top with the Netherlands because of it.
And they were so close to winning the game too. Had Alex Morgan not been offside.
Yeah, there was
that. That was the tough one.
Yeah.
So sucks for our actual homeland.
Yeah.
But
and
they have time to right the ship.
And the thing is too, with the goal differential they have, because they have a +3 goal differential.
Mm-hmm.
Netherlands just a +1. So you play against Portugal as the United States, the 3 team in the group. In your last match, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken,
Portugal.
Yeah, it's Tuesday, August 1st at 2 a.m. here, at least 2 a.m. So you get a win there, you're in, right? That's not the question. It's a matter of, are they going to win the group or not? You expect them to, but the Netherlands has put up a good fight so far. Basically, as long as you win, and the Netherlands doesn't win 3-0, 4-0, you win the group.
Yeah.
So just, the U.S., go out there, do your stuff. You should be just fine.
Some other pleasant surprises in this Women's World Cup, other than the Philippines, of course. Just, you don't have to look far. Look at Group B. How about Nigeria?
Yeah. They've been a nice surprise.
Winning the group right now, tied with Canada. And they've got the other host nation, Australia, on the ropes right now. That's interesting to see there. Spain and Japan, as we expected, running away with Group C. Costa Rica and Zambia haven't even won a game, and I believe they play each other next. So they're out of it.
Group H with Germany, they still have yet to play their second games. I believe those are coming up tomorrow or the next couple of days from now.
I believe so.
But so Germany leading the group, Colombia right there as well. Sweden leading the group with Italy. So, there you go. It's coming up this weekend. And then the only other group that hasn't played their second match yet, Group F, with Brazil, France, Jamaica, Panama. And actually, I say that. Group D, Denmark, England, China, Haiti.
That'll be France and Brazil play Saturday, so do Panama and Jamaica. And tomorrow, or technically overnight tonight, England and Denmark and China and Haiti, they will play each other.
Yeah, so it's, you assume Germany, like we said, is going to win the group. That's kind of the case in point. So, yeah, it's going to be fun to see if any of these threes leapfrog and jump into the top 2 or not. Like I said, Portugal, as long as the U.S. wins, they're fine. They're probably going to win the group. Jamaica and France are going to be interesting because they only have 1 point to each of them through one match so far since they drew against one another. So that'll be interesting to see how those kind of flip-flop or not. Italy, South Africa, Argentina, the 2 through 4 there with Sweden at the top, tied with Italy. So that one's still anybody's race. I mean, any of these are once you get to that second match. But, it's going to be interesting to see how some of these pan out. I'm going to be interested to see how the Philippines do if they can get that win, because if they get that win, that'll put them at least at a 0 goal differential. It'll just be a matter from there of
can they get help?
What New Zealand, what happens in New Zealand? Does Switzerland beat them? And if so, that puts you in as long as you win.
Yes.
If New Zealand draws, then it's going to come up to goal differential. So
you never know what can happen. That's what you love about sports like the World Cup in soccer. So I'm excited because United States is still in the thick of it, of course, and what could be the end of an era for the women's national team. And, of course, for my mom's homeland, the Philippines, this is exciting for them because, like I said, I think it was the last time we were on the pod, last Olympics, the Philippines got their first gold medal, and now they have their first Women's World Cup.
Right.
Will the men ever get there? Probably not. That's just me. I'm just being honest, so. I think that's another episode in the books, my friend.
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
Good time, about an hour and a half.
Yeah, it timed out really well. So, maybe we'll have good audience retention on this one. And trying something new, of course, with the way we recorded this one.
Yeah.
So it's raw, uncut, and in living color, folks. That's what you're going to get here for a little while. That's our last episode here of July. When you see us again, it'll be the month of August, which means, having gotten past Media Day, That means summer is over.
Yep.
We are rolling right into the brunt of our season. The Hornets are coming up very soon. We're going to be having some special guests come on the show here pretty soon after a while. Third guest hosts as well, as I've mentioned. But coming up next week, we'll have a whole slew of more deadline talk, so we're not done talking baseball, folks.
Yeah, because the deadline will have passed as of a couple days or a day or so before that, so kind of recapping it, seeing what the moves are, any 11th hour deals, and seeing what the impact is going to be going from there.
It'll send a shock to the system. Obviously, more could come with the conference realignment that we talked about at the top of the podcast today. More Women's World Cup, obviously. Lots can happen because that's just the nature of sports, folks.
Right.
So many things happen just like that, and we're glad to bring it here to all of you. For my partner, Jordan Smith, and the entire crew, I'm Carlos Zimmerman. Thanks for joining us once again here on the KSAM Sports Podcast. We'll see you coming up next week. Have a great rest of your day, evening, wherever you may be listening to this from. And as always, have a pleasant tomorrow.
Why? Why?
Oh, wow.